Good night, Mr. Rangga. My name is Vira Anissa Kesuma. My seat is 33210169. I want explain about melodrama, realistic drama, and theater of absurd in English drama. Next. The Fault in Our Stars. So I want explain about a movie which are melodrama. First, I will explain about summary and setting of the story. So, The Fault in Our Star is a fabulous movie about a young teenage girl who has been diagnosed with lung cancer and attends a cancer support group. Hazel is 16 and is reluctant to go to the support group, but she soon realizes that it was a good idea. Hazel meets a young boy named August Waters, and he is falling in love with her because they are already meeting together in hospital. Next, this is a poster, The Fault in Our Stars. So The Fault in Our Star is technically set in Indianapolis. Second place is Amsterdam. So basically the polar opposite of the Indianapolis we just left. When Hazel and August go to Amsterdam, it's not just another country or continent for them. It is a totally different life, one that doesn't involve regular trips to the hospital and rolling their eyes as they sit in the literal heart of Jesus. So this movie is very sad and make them very sad because already have many experience about sex and gathering about family. Next. So the characterization of story is first Hazel Grace Lancaster. So this is a main role. So the novel's narrator and 16 years old protagonist, an astute and remarkably conscientious girl. Hazel was diagnosed at age 13 with a terminal form of thyroid cancer that has since spread to her lungs. She keeps most people at a distance, knowing her death will ultimately hurt them, until she falls in love with Augustus. Second character is Augustus or Gus Waters. So he is the 16 years old with osteosarcoma who becomes Hazel's boyfriend. Augustus has a keen wit and a tendency toward performance. He revels in grand romantic gestures. Augustus almost immediately falls in love with Hazel after meeting her at support group. Next is Isaac. So Isaac is the mutual friend of Hazel's and Augustus who facilitated their introduction at support group. Isaac is cynical by nature, blinded by censor, and kicked to the curb by his girlfriend Monica. Isaac often embodies skepticism and rage. It is worth noting that his shares with name is biblical Isaac, who also was blind. So this is a main role with third person. Next. I will explain about component of melodrama. First is from characterization. Characterization is characters tend to be one-dimensional and uncomplicated. Stock characters and stereotypical personalities are common in melodramas. You will often find overly virtuous heroes and heroines, artfully evil villains, scheming femme fatales, and seductresses, haughty aristocrats, and devoted, simple-minded servants. Second component is dialogue. So dialogue is much of the action in a melodrama unfolds through the dialogue, which employs over-the-top wording, grand declaration, dramatic pronunciation, narration when present serves to support the dialogue and further embellishes the scene with flowery and language and sweeping statement. After that, plot. So the plot of melodramas are simple, straightforward storylines that deal with age-old dilemmas and scenarios like the battle between good and evil, the struggle between repression and freedom, and betrayals in interpersonal relationships. While the melodramatic plot at its core is simple, it will generally unfold through exaggerated events. And the last is setting. Setting in melodrama is take place in private settings like homes. This allows for an amplification of the characters' personal struggles and all the emotions that go along with them. Next, component of realistic drama. So in realistic drama have focus on real life, the theater of realism investigated and spoke about real people in everyday situations dealing with common problems. Second is an emphasis on behavior and true diction. And the last is believable dialogue. So believable dialogue is realistic drama because dialogue is not fake. So the dialogue in realistic drama so have many natural words. So already you see in screen, this is an example of realistic drama. Next, I want to explain about component of absurd theater. First is plot and structure. In absurd theater have anti-realistic, going against many of the accepted norms of conventional theater and labeled by some critics as anti-theater. After that, acting and characterization. Often an absence of character development, absurd characters lack the motivation found in characters of realistic dramas, highlighting their purposelessness. Third is movement. So movement is mixture of realistic and non-realistic and elements of circus, vaudeville, and acrobatics. And the last is dialogue. So dialogue in absurd theater usually sometimes telegraphic and clipped, also long pauses. So dialogue in between person or another person is decreased because more telegraphic and clipped. And after that, stagecraft. Stagecraft is often simple and minimalist use of stagecraft. Next, I want to explain about famous playwright in melodrama. This is example about famous playwright in melodrama. First is Diane Boycikult, lived in 1822 until 1890. The most successful English language melodramas artwork is Corsican Brothers in 1852 and The Octoroon 1859 and many more. Combat sentiment with and local color with sensational and spectacular endings. He was the first in the US to demand and receive royalties for performance of his plays. Instrument in the International Copyright Agreement of 1886. His plays contain volcanoes, earthquakes, burning buildings, and etc. And the second playwright in melodrama is Rain Charles Gilbert the Visceral Coach, born in 1773 until 1844. He is specialized in canyon melodramas, disaster melodramas, for example, floods, volcanoes, and etc. Sometimes he directed his own plays. Plays have easily identified character types and startling theatrical effects that were more important than the dialogue. So his famous artwork is The Dog of Montmartre. Next, I want to explain about famous playwright in realistic drama. This is example about famous art writer in realistic drama. I want to explain about two of them. First, In Norway, Henrik Ibsen, born in 1828 until 1906, is considered to be the father of modern realistic drama. His plays attacked society values and dealt with unconventional subjects within the form of the well-made plays, usually called causally related. So, famous artwork is First Class in 1881 dealt with the concept of the scenes of the father transferring to the son, resulting is in syphilis. Second is Pillars of Society, distributed in 1876. Characterization is dealt with war and business. And the second is George Bernard Shaw in 1856 until 1950 in England. So his famous artwork is Arms and Men in 1894. The story about love and war and honor. Next is Miss Warren's Provision. Is talk about prostitution. After that, Major Barbara in 1905. A munitions manufacturer give more to the world, for example, jobs and etc., while the Salvation Army only prolongs of the status quo. Next, I want to explain about Samuel Barclay and Max Frisch. This is example of famous playwright in Absura drama. So first, Samuel Barclay was born in Dublin, Ireland on April 13, 1906. His father, William, was a prosperous businessman and his mother, Mary, was the daughter of a gentleman. Barclay was said to have inherited the temperament of his mother, whom the bear described as intensely moody. Barclay had just one sibling, a brother named Frank, who was 4 years his elder. So his artwork famous is Not I in 1972, second is Catastrophe in 1982, and the last is What Where in 1983. The second famous playwright is Frisch. Frisch was one of the most prominent German voices of the absurd, using his plays to extract evil from the actions of everyday life. The firebugs center around a man who must deal with local arsonists who trick themselves into entering people's homes to such an extent that it makes the homeowners complicit in their own failure. Written in the wake of schemes and Nazism, evil permeates over the banality and comedy of the dialogue. So the famous his artwork is Weatherman and Die Brand's Stave Chart. Next, I want to explain about element of melodrama. So element of melodrama is the key features of melodrama as the forms are pathos, overouch or heightened emotions, moral polarization, such as good versus evil, non-classical narrative structure, especially the use of extreme coincidence and deus ex machina to further plot elements. And sensationalism emphasis on action, violence, and thrills. Next, what is element of realism? First is true / them / ideas. What the play means as opposed to what happens or the plot. So the theme is what the play and what is the summary about idea. Next is action or plot. Action or plot is, as we know, is about consequence, about time in one story or one element of realism drama. And next is character. Character is a human to make a story more complicated and more colorful with the different character. Next, language. So language in realism drama is about a way to main role to speak with other language to realism and natural. Next is music. So music in realism drama is make the situation and condition more colorful and get attention to the watcher. Next is spectacle. Next, I want to explain about element of theater absurd. First is theatrical features. In theatrical features is placed within this group are absurd in that they focus not on logical acts, realistic occurrence, or traditional character development. They instead focus on human being trapped in an incomprehensible world subject to any occurrence, no matter how illogical. Second is character. Characters in absurdist drama are lost and floating in an incomprehensible universe, and they abandon rational devices and discursive too because this approach are inadequate. Third is language. Despite its reputation for nonsense language, much of the dialogue in absurdist plays is naturalistic. The movements, when character resorts to nonsense language or glitch, when words appear to have lost their denotative function, thus creating misunderstanding among the characters, make the theater of the absurd distinctive. And the last is plot. Traditional plot structures are rarely a consideration in the theater of the absurd. So plots can consist of the absurd repetition of glitch and routine. For example, as in Godot or the Bold Soprano. Next, I want to explain about origin melodrama and what is history about melodrama. So the combination of spoken word and music engendered an emotional response in viewers and have significant entertainment value, prompting writers to develop and refine longer, more dramatic works that achieve the same aims and minimize or eliminate the role of music. English and French dramatists were popular plays filled with stock characters, hyperbolic situation, and dramatic language. So, A Tale of Misery in 1802 by Thomas Holcroft was the first recognized English melodrama. By the middle of the 19th century, sensational novels swept Great Britain. They stretched the bounds of romance and realism with entertaining storylines that often hinged on shocking scraps. The books of Wilkie Collins and Mary Elizabeth Braddon are classic sensation novels. This work paved the way for the further evolution and popularity of the genre, which show more melodrama in dramatic and literary works, and especially in the film and the television entertainments that would take hold in the 20th century. So as you see on the screen is example about origin melodrama. Next about origin of realistic drama. So realism in the theater was a general movement that began in 19th century theater around the 18th, 17th century and remains present through much of the 20th century. It develops a set of dramatics and theatrical convention with the aim of bringing a greater fidelity of real life to text and performances. These conventions occur in the text, such as set, costume, sound, and lighting, design, performance style, and narrative structure. So they can include recreating on stage a facsimile of real life except missing. Virtual on proscenium art stage, characters speak a naturalistic, authentic dialogue without forced or poetic styling, and acting is meant to emulate human behavior in real life. So narratives typically are psychologically driven and include day-to-day ordinary scenarios. Narrative action moves forward in time, and supernatural presences like gods, ghosts, fantastic phenomena do not occur. Sound and music are diegetic only, part of a broader artistic movement. It includes naturalism and socialist realism. So this is an example about realistic drama and one of clip in realistic drama. Next is theater of absurd. This is an example of clip about theater of absurd. You can see in the screen. So what is origin of absurd theater? So the theater of absurd is a term coined by the critic Martin Esslin for the work of a number of playwrights, mostly written in the 1950 and 1960. The term is derived from an essay by the French philosopher Albert Camus. In his Myth of Sisyphus, written in 1942, he first defined the human situation as basically meaningless and absurd. The absurd plays by Samuel Beckett, Arthur Adamov, Eugene Ionesco, Jean Genet, Harold Pinter, and others all share the view that man is inhabiting a universe with which he is out of key. Its meaning is indecipherable and his place within it is without purpose. He is bewildered, troubled, and obscurely threatened. Next, the origin of the theater of the absurd were rooted in the avant-garde experiments in art of the 1920s and 1930s. At the same time, it was undoubtedly strongly influenced by the traumatic experience of the horrors of the Second World War, which showed the total impermanence of any values, shook the validity of any convention, and highlighted the precariousness of human life and its fundamental meaninglessness and arbitrariness. The trauma of living from 1945 under threat of nuclear annihilation also seems to have been an important factor in the rise of the new terror. So this is all explained about the melodrama, realistic drama, and absurd theater. Thank you. Yeah.